Hey guys, I wanted to make a short video on what it'll mean to actually conduct a user interview on the behalf of Sups. So I think that as a precursor to this interview, you must have definitely already logged into our platform, probably used it for at least an hour, because really you're going to have to be pretty comfortable with all the buttons that exist on the current site. The big reason that we do user interviews, just from a general high-level startup lens, is to understand what value we can add to the product and where the product is lacking in probably the easiest way possible. That's because oftentimes just relying on feedback forms or asking customers about what they feel about your product is not the best way to get feedback. And actually watching a user use the product and seeing how they actually get value from it is the best way. And most of you guys are pretty interested in startups, so doing user interviews is something that you're going to be doing probably for the rest of your life. And it's really something already as founders that we've already done at least 40 to 50 of these user interviews, and we're probably going to be doing, 40 to 50 more in the next month or two. And it's something that you can't really do too much of. And that's kind of the gist behind this as well. You're doing these user interviews so that you can get familiar with SUPs, get familiar with some of the ideas that we'll be thinking about, and really just get kind of your mental juices flowing when it comes to thinking about what we're going to have in the future. So, with that being said, this interview should be pretty casual. Again, you guys are largely high school seniors and juniors, and the people you're going to be interviewing are high school juniors and seniors. So, really, it should be your friends. It should be people that you've met in class. It should be people that are in your organizations, and anyone that's really excited kind of to do this process. Now, ideally, it would be someone who's already kind of familiar with SUPs, but for the purposes of these interviews, especially because it's mostly like your friends and people that you know that are going to be kind of the customers and the interviewees, that's not especially important. You just need to send them kind of a blurb about, hey, this is SUPs. We're doing, interviews for this ambassador program that I'm a part of. And, by participating in this interview, you can get access to the platform for we'll be giving like a 50% discount to anyone that does an interview. And you'll be helping me out kind of in this program. And you'll also get to use a tool that's just helpful for your college apps as well. And so really just sending them over the site a little bit beforehand and then getting into a quiet spot or over Zoom or video call is okay too. I don't recommend phone call at all, but I think Zoom call or in person is fine. And just making sure that you can have 20 to 30 minutes of uninterrupted time, focusing on SUPs and kind of the value that it brings to the person doing the interview. So what the interview will be like is different than most, I guess, like interviews that you might have done kind of in your life. And that's because the focus isn't for you to be asking questions. The focus is to be watching how they interact with the product. And so you'll be learning a lot more from them speaking and from them using the product than from you actually asking any questions. And so the way the interview will start, and I'll kind of share my screen to show you to kind of mimic what exactly should be going on the side of like, the screen specifically. So you want them to navigate to the website themselves, and then you'll kind of want to take them through the entire process without actually telling them what to do. So if it's over Zoom, you'll actually want them to share their screen and you want to watch this. If it's in person, you'll want to kind of be next to them so you can see how that they're interacting with the product. And so you'll probably start off, they'll probably click on sign up and they'll probably get to this screen. You'll want to watch them as they log in. But again, don't tell them how to log in. It should be intuitive, but if it's not, that's something that we need to process as people who create the product, because most people that use Sups will never have a guide to help them use the product. So they'll probably be, navigated to this dashboard. And the first phase of the interview is kind of just the introductory phase, is how easy is it to sign up and how easy is it to begin getting value from the platform. So will they click around? Will they start adding colleges? Will they start clicking into these colleges? And I have some content here, obviously, but maybe theirs will definitely be blank. Will they start clicking into them? Will they start playing around? Can they by themselves? Can they go to the background section and add some of the background? Are they filling out the stuff by themselves? Or are they kind of lost? Do they not know what add college means? Are they confused? What are their emotions are probably the hardest thing to get, but that is the most important thing, is how do they feel about the sign up process? How do they feel about beginning to use a product? And can they start getting value, right away? Like, are they already playing with the buttons and already like, that's interesting what I'm seeing here. Or is there some friction, some roadblock that's stopping them from using the platform right away without your instruction? So that's the first phase of the interviews, the introductory. The high level is how did they feel when it comes to just getting onboarded, and how did they feel about just beginning to use it? The next phase is now, this should have taken a couple minutes. Now that they've begun to start getting value, you want to see how they actually interact with the product and what value they're getting. So maybe they're looking through this brainstorming and they're like, oh, this is pretty useful. Maybe they're highlighting stuff and asking questions. Maybe they're clicking this and being like, hey, like, help me elaborate here or something like that, right? And maybe they're not. Maybe they're focusing on specific buttons that you might not have thought about too much, but that's the ones they're clicking on. Maybe they click on this button and they want to talk to a Georgetown student. Kind of this is just when they're playing with it, kind of understanding the platform a bit more, seeing some of the value that's created. And again, you want to understand again, like how much value are you getting from it? Like essentially, like, would you pay for this? And then you also want to get into like, would you pay for this value or not? But basically, like, how do they feel about the outputs? How do they feel about the content? How do they feel about the results that they're getting on the screen? And you really want to gauge their emotions in real time. So that's the second phase of the interview, is watching them actually use the product after they've begun onboarding and getting their feelings for that, and seeing which buttons they click, why they click them, which buttons they don't click, why they don't click them. Do they not think this is valuable? Do they not think is the button misnamed and maybe it is valuable, but they're not clicking it because they don't know that it's valuable? That's kind of the second phase. And then the third phase of the interview should really be something that doesn't have their screen. They're not screen sharing anymore. They're not really using the product, and it's kind of like a reflective almost piece of the interview. And that's basically one reflecting on, okay, you used it for a bit, you saw some of the value off the first 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. So I would say the introductory phase, probably 5 minutes, the intermediate phase of where they're using it, maybe 10 minutes. And then now in those, 15-ish, 20 minutes, how much value do you think you got? How much would you pay for that value? Did you get any value at all? Where was the value? Was it in a certain button that you'd want to pay for, but you wouldn't want to pay for another part? And you really want to hone in on what was valuable, what wasn't, why was it valuable, why wasn't it valuable? And then you want to get into the next phase of, okay, A, how could this be more valuable? And how much more valuable would it make it? Would it double its value? Would it triple its value? What would that feature be? Is it like I don't know, AI school list generator? Would it be, talking directly to students, watching videos about admitted students? What would be that next value add? And then also a key question that we're really focusing on is what would it take for you to share this platform with your friends? So after after they're done using it, you can ask them, would you share this in your friend group chat? Yes, no, why not? And then also, what would it take? What kind of feature would it take for you to make this something that you share on your friends, on your story, on your, wherever it is in school? Maybe you just talk about it. What would it take? Do you have to gamify it? Do you need a leaderboard? Like, what does that kind of look like? I would say that's kind of the keys of the phase of each of these interviews, and we'll be giving you an actual interview form, of course, that'll guide you through and have these questions, have some of the specific thoughts you should be looking at. But really, I would emphasize that it should be an informal call, and an informal discovery of what makes Sups valuable. Some key things that I would say are pretty important. If you're taking notes, you should tell them up front that the reason you're typing is because you're taking notes. So be very transparent so it doesn't look like you're unengaged, because really this will be a conversation about Sups, and no one likes talking to someone who's just typing away on their laptop without reason. Second, avoid leading questions. What this means is avoid yes or no questions. So avoid saying like, a video feature would be valuable here, right? Like, see how I asked that? That's a very leading question. It gets them to think in a very narrow mindset, a very narrow feature, versus, what kind of features, would you see here? Or what kind of value could be added in this part? Or like, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about this button? How do you feel about this feature? How do you feel about this platform? How do you feel about the sign up? Those are very open-ended questions. And those are much, much better than, was the sign up process easy? Yes or no? Like, that's not a very useful question. Or would this feature be good here? Yes or no? That's again not a very useful question. Avoid kind of guiding the user in any way that you can. Let them do all the exploration themselves, and you just want to be there as kind of gauging their feelings, gauging their thoughts, and writing their thoughts down in real time. If you could kind of be inside their mind and seeing all of this through their eyes, that's the best case scenario. Unfortunately, of course, that isn't possible, right? And lastly, I would say if it looks like they get super excited about talking about one area, ask them follow-ups, ask them to elaborate. What do they mean? You talked a lot about having this kind of value inside of this part of the product. Like, tell me more about what kind of feature you'd want to see there. Tell me more about the value that we can create there. Tell me more about what need is being addressed there. What problem are we dealing with? And so really focusing on kind of where we can create value is key, and what problems we can address is really key, versus also just talking about like what the feature might look like. Because oftentimes these kids, they're not going to be product designers. And really they're not always going to know what the best product might look like, but they're going to know where value is, and they're going to know where their problems are being addressed. So hopefully this video kind of helps you out when it comes to conducting a lot of these interviews. Of course, I'll be available if anyone needs any help, and we're going to try to do some synchronous calls as well. But I just wanted to kickstart some of these interviews, and you can use this as kind of a guide along with the form that we send out shortly.